Assalamu alaikum. The topic of today's presentation is peritonitis, and my name is Professor Khalid Rashid, Department of Surgery at JPMC. As you can see here, that acute abdomen is a very painful condition and is a surgical emergency, and peritonitis is one of the leading causes of acute abdomen. So we'll discuss in detail in the coming slides. Inflammation of the peritoneum, either localized or generalized, is called peritonitis. It's an emergency condition and therefore prompt recognition of the cause, and its urgent treatment is mandatory. Most commonly caused by bacterial invasion in the peritoneum. Even those conditions of peritonitis which starts as a non-bacterial, such as pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas, eventually leads to transmural migration of bacteria from the intestine and causing bacterial infection. Usually we divide peritonitis into two types, a localized type and the generalized type. Localized means that flakes of fibrin which appear and cause loops of intestine to adhere together, and the part of that intestine, it becomes the peristalsis becomes retarded, and the greater omentum, which has got a big role in localizing the infection, adhere to that inflamed area and often causes a barrier to the spread of infection. So all these factors leads to a localized collection, and that is called localized peritonitis. For example, where in case of acute appendicitis, although an inflammation is there, but it is localized to right iliac fossa, where appendix is anatomically situated. Compared to that, generalized variety is where the whole abdominal cavity becomes inflamed, and the causes which leads to this condition are, first of all, how rapidly the infection sets in, and the second factor is if the peristalsis does not cease and or it is speeded up for one reason or the other. For example, if in case of this acute abdomen, acute abdomen, if enema is given, which is contraindicated, if it is given and it leads to severe peristalsis, and it leads to spread of infection. The third cause of generalized peritonitis is the infection. The causative organisms are very virulent, and they are not being contained by the immunity of the individual. And the fourth factor may be the patient himself is deficient in immunity. For example, he is suffering from comorbid diseases like diabetes, where the immunological status is low. In all such cases, the body's effort to localize the infection is failed, and the infection spreads generally in the peritoneal cavity, and it is called generalized peritonitis. What are the causes of peritonitis? We can divide the causes into surgical causes, where medical causes, and gynecological causes. It does not mean medical causes. Surgical, gynecological and medical causes means that those diseases which can be treated surgically or just by medical treatment in the medical wards, or by the gynecological treatment by the gynecologists. So they are divided into these three categories. For example, if we see the surgical causes, First of all, they are inflammation, and the second is infection. And the examples are acute appendicitis, acute cholecystitis, acute pancreatitis, where lot of pancreatic fluid enzymes enter into the peritoneal cavity and make them inflamed. Acute diverticulitis, where the sigmoid colon becomes inflamed because of pre-existing diverticuli. Acute cholangitis. So all these conditions causes peritonitis. After, these are the second type of surgical causes are caused by the perforation of the viscus. For example, perforation of the peptic ulcer or the appendix, or when the colon becomes dilated in case of inflammatory bowel disease, and then it perforates. Acute cholecystitis sometimes perforate, and the bile enters into the peritoneal cavity. Liver abscess ruptures, sometimes perforation of the abdominal esophagus, or ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. These are all causes where the viscus is perforated and the peritoneal cavity is flooded by the contents. Similarly, gynecological causes, for example, ectopic pregnancy, where the pregnancy is somewhere away from the normal uterine uterus into the tubes, and then it when it progresses and eventually it ruptures. So the blood and the conceptual products, they enter into the peritoneal cavity and make them inflamed. Ovarian cyst will become torsion. Ovarian cyst gets ruptured and hemorrhage or infarction. Pelvic inflammatory disease leads to the peritonitis. Similarly, salpingitis, which is inflammation of the fallopian tubes, and so on. So these are all the causes which are gynecological in nature and usually treated in the gynecological wards. And lastly, the medical causes, where the causes are such that they are treated by the medical units. For example, myocardial infarction. Although myocardial infarction does not produce peritonitis, but sometimes it mimics acute abdomen. Similarly, gastritis, which is the inflammation, acidity in the stomach, acid peptic disease itself, hepatitis, viral hepatitis, for example, uremia, porphyria, all these medical conditions mimic peritonitis, and they are treated by the medical departments. How do we diagnose acute abdomen caused by peritonitis? It is made, diagnosis is usually made by the complete history, a thorough history, a physical examination of the relevant system and other systems as well, and laboratory investigations and imaging. Sometimes, in rare cases, diagnostic laparoscopy is also indicated. We will take a full complete history about the complaint, starting with the presenting complaint and its associated symptoms, how pain started, and is it associated with vomiting, diarrhea, nausea, etc. Don't forget to take a systemic review of the other systems like respiratory system, cardiovascular system. They are also important in diagnosing. Ask about the past medical history, any surgical operations, for gynecological history, especially the last menstrual period, maybe some family history sometimes leads to the diagnosis. Also, you have to ask about whether patient has traveled in the recent past. Now, pain is the most common symptom in acute abdomen. So ask the patient about the site of onset, where it started, and what is the nature of the pain, whether it is colicky in nature or burning pain or stabbing pain. Similarly, you have to ask about the severity, how severe the pain is, and what are the factors which aggravate the pain or alleviate the pain, like lying still. If relieves the pain, it means the patient is suffering from inflammation in the peritoneal cavity. Also, shifting of the pain is important. For example, in case of acute appendicitis, pain starts in the midline around the umbilicus and then eventually settles in the right iliac fossa when the parietal peritoneum gets involved. Now, the abdominal pain, if we discuss the abdominal pain, it may be either visceral pain, the parietal pain, or the referred pain. So, several factors modify the expression of pain. For example, patient is extreme of age. For example, very young or very old person will suffer more. Some patient has good tolerance to the pain and some don't have tolerance to the pain. Patient's vascular compromise, for example, inside the abdomen, patient is suffering from ischemia of the intestine. All these factors leads to the severity of pain. Now, what is visceral pain? Most often the visceral pain is vague and it's felt in the midline due to bilateral sensory supply, and they are usually not accompanied by the tenderness. When we examine the abdomen, the visceral pain does not have tenderness. They are usually gradual in onset. They are not localized specifically at one single point. It is poorly localized, it is dull, and it is deep, suggesting that they are coming from the organs themselves. So they usually occur because of the traction on the bowel mesentery or ischemia of the bowel. They are also stimulated by stretching of an organ, distension of an organ, or contractions of the gut or the intra-abdominal organs. They all produce colicky pains because of the muscles they contract and causes ischemia at that point. In contrast to visceral pain, the parietal pain is more sharp. It is better localized. Patient can point his fingers to where he is feeling the pain and easily described because it is very sharp and very well localized. And this is because of the direct irritation of the parietal peritoneum by the inflammatory process, and correspond to the cutaneous distribution of T6 to L1, which is the whole span of the abdomen. Parietal pains are usually aggravated by coughing, walking, and movements. Tenderness is also present in such type of pains, and usually when the tenderness and abound tenderness is present and bowel sounds are absent bowel sounds, then it is it means that peritonitis has sets in. And the true parietal pain is of definite surgically treatable type of pain. And the third type of pain is the referred pain. It is extension of pain from, which means extension of pain from one side to another side, while persisting pain at the original site. And for example, in acute appendicitis, for example, in a case of biliary colic, the right shoulder, the pain goes to the right shoulder because the diaphragm is inflamed by the inflamed gallbladder, and then the diaphragm and the right and the shoulder share the same nerve supply. So that's why the inflamed gallbladder, cholecystitis or biliary colic, leads to pain in the radiating to the right shoulder. Similarly, appendicitis, where it starts in the periumbilical region and then it goes to the right iliac fossa. Stone of the ureter, and then it radiates to the right testicle. So all these are the examples of the referred pain. Now the mode of onset of peritonitis, it may be explosive within seconds. For example, suddenly after a meal, the patient's duodenal ulcer has ruptured and the contents has entered into the peritoneal cavity. Within seconds, it is explosive, or maybe rapidly progressing within hour or two, or gradually progressing over several hours, not minutes, several hours. So this is a type of onset. Patients presents with acute peritonitis, with generalized peritonitis. The character is like constant burning features of peritonitis, throbbing inflammation of cholecystitis. Sometimes the character of pain changes. For example, colic pain changes into a constant pain, and that is a bad sign, because it means that some obstruction in the intestine, which was producing colic pain, has now because of the strangulation and ischemia of the intestine, and leads to strangulation and necrosis of intestine. So this is also taken into account, whether the character of pain has changed or it is changing. Aggravating or relieving factors like coughing, movement, exercise, they are also taken into account. Associated symptoms like nausea or vomiting, they also have to be noted. Menstrual history should be noted. Drugs, for example, NSAIDs, steroids, etc., all leading to perforation of the intestine, they have to be noted. Now examination. As you can see here, this is a very typical Hippocratic face. General appearance of the patient's face in a very advanced state of generalized peritonitis. In this case, patient has gone into septicemia. It's a grave sign. We have to notice the general appearance. We have to notice the pulse, blood pressure, and respiratory rates. We have to see whether the abdomen is moving with respiration or not. We have to notice the gut sound, whether they are present or absent, and also we have to examine the inguinoscrotal area to rule out any strangulated hernia. Similarly, we have to send laboratory investigations, not all of them, these are all the list of investigations. We have to choose which investigation is relevant in what patient. Complete blood count to see white cell, the hemoglobin and the white cells, the C-reactive protein in selective cases, ESR, PTINR is also sent in some cases where it is relevant. Urea, creatinine, electrolytes almost always sent because they all reflect the patient's level of hydration and the renal functions. Arterial blood gases in certain cases, serum amylase when you suspect serum amylase and serum lipase when you suspect pancreatitis, liver function tests, and beta human chorionic gonadotropin for suspected ectopic pregnancy. So these are the tests and they are selectively sent whatever suspicion you have. Urine DR usually sent in all cases, urine culture, and stool DR in selected cases. There are certain radiological investigations which are simple, rapidly done, and they are informative. X-ray chest for subdiaphragmatic gases, free gas under the diaphragm. Lateral decubitus abdominal X-ray for gases along the lateral wall in sick patient, those who cannot sit. Usually plain X-ray supine for dilated bowels, and in erect posture as well to see the multiple air fluid levels in case of paralytic ileus because of peritonitis. Here you can see the erect chest X-ray, and you can see free gas under the both domes of diaphragm here. These are the free gases under the diaphragm, this black area, and here as well you can see on the right side there is a free gas under the right dome of diaphragm. So this is how free gas appears under the diaphragm, and it shows that a viscous has been viscous, usually the stomach or the duodenum or the sometime appendix or intestine has been perforated. So free gas comes under in the abdomen, and in erect posture it is shown under the right dome of diaphragm. So this is very diagnostic of perforation. Another X-ray, lateral decubitus, where in cases where patients are very moribund and they cannot even sit up or stand, in those cases you have to do a lateral decubitus so that the gas comes are shown under the lateral abdominal wall. It is here, you can see lateral decubitus position. Dilated loops of small intestine in supine position in case of paralytic ileus. You can see dilated loops of intestine, and they suggest that patient is now under patient has got a paralytic ileus because of excessive inflammation. And here you can see multiple air fluid levels in the gut, in the central part, which means the multiple air fluid levels, again a sign of paralytic ileus. Ultrasound abdomen is a very useful investigation in case of peritonitis, and it identifies the inflammatory conditions, stones, free fluid in the abdominal cavity. If gallbladder is inflamed, it shows the gallbladder thickness, gallbladder stones, pericholecystic fluid in case of acute cholecystitis, any masses anywhere in the abdomen, in the intestine, in the colon, anywhere. It is also useful in case of emergency pregnancy, where ruptured ectopic pregnancy is present, and other gynecological cases of acute abdomen. So ultrasound examination of the abdomen is a very useful investigation. It is non-invasive, it is easily available, it is cheap, so it is one of the very good tool for the diagnosis. Further, you can have CT scans where they are available, MRIs. We can also have specialized CT or MRIs like angiography, CT angiography for mesenteric blood flow in case of mesenteric ischemia. And last but not the least, laparoscopic diagnostic and therapeutic examination is also one of the methods to investigate and treat. So, treatment. Any patient with acute abdominal pain persisting for more than 6 hours should be regarded as having a surgical problem requiring a hospital admission. So this is important to note, that if the pain persists for more than 5-6 hours, you have to take it seriously. And then when we make the diagnosis, then we have to treat the cause. Indication for urgent exploration in patients with acute abdomen are the guarding and rigidity, increase or severe localized tenderness. If the tenderness increases with the subsequent examinations, this is also one of the signs of severity. Progressive distension of the abdomen, rectal bleeding, if it is noted with shock, it is again one of the grave signs. And when the abdominal findings are equivocal, yes or no, and along with septicemia, this is one of the indications for urgent exploration in acute abdominal patients. What type of preoperative measures we have to take? First of all, adequate resuscitation with fluids, analgesia. In moderate doses of analgesics, they neither obscure the physical signs nor they mask the further development. So analgesia should be adequate, fluid resuscitation should be adequate. If pain persists in spite of adequate doses of narcotics, it suggests a serious condition, often requiring urgent measures. Patient of peritonitis should be catheterized, nasogastric tube should be passed. Of course, wide bore IV line is maintained with adequate resuscitation. After the informed consent, exploration should be done. Broad spectrum antibiotic coverage should also be given to prevent any post-op infections. What should be the resuscitation time? Patient with sepsis could be resuscitated between 3 to 6 hours with adequate fluids, analgesia, antibiotics, oxygen. Patient with septic shock and intra-aortic pressure of more than 25 millimeter of mercury were resuscitated between 12 to 20 hours, and it took 24 hours in one patient with septic shock to, to be resuscitated. Early exploration is indicated where almost all the patients are taken up for surgery soon after they are adequately resuscitated for surgery. Minimum intervention and the fastest way was the method of surgery followed in these patients to control the infection and to reduce the anesthesia exposure, because longer the anesthesia, will be, the poorer the prognosis would be. So we have to do the minimum in case of patient with the emergency operations in case of generalized peritonitis, and we do a minimum and come out as quickly as possible with reduced anesthesia exposure. What are the general principles of exploration? Thorough exploration and suctioning of all the cavity should be done. Then with warm saline, the abdominal cavity should be thoroughly rinsed, which is called a lavage, with the clear fluids. Iodine or any chemical agent should not be used in lavage unless it is a amoebic liver abscess, and then it should be metronidazole solution should be used. Now, what type of procedures are usually done in case of generalized peritonitis? Usually it depends upon the cause, and here is the list. You can see here the etiology of peritonitis, like in case of duodenal and gastric perforation, closure with omental patch. In case of appendicular perforation, you have to do appendicectomy. Ileal perforation or multiple perforations, either you have to close the perforation or you have to resect with ileostomy when there is, in case of multiple perforations. Colonic perforation, colostomy. Intestinal strangulation, resection of small bowel and anastomosis, and primary anastomosis. In case of gangrene small bowel due to superior mesenteric artery thrombosis, resection and anastomosis, or sometimes we have to make a stoma as well. When there is a ruptured liver abscess, a thorough peritoneal lavage is indicated. There are certain instances where re-laparotomy is done, either as a planned procedure or sometimes because of the complication which arises later on. For example, superior mesenteric artery thrombosis, the extension of gangrene, we have to look back into the abdominal cavity to see the extension of the gangrene of the bowel, further extension of the gangrene of the bowel because of dieback phenomena. Duodenal ulcer perforation, for example, duodenal blowout sometimes happens, so we have to go in and redo the procedure. Sometimes in case of enteric perforations, fecal fistula is formed and then we have to go back again. In certain cases there may be a burst abdomen. In that case you have to go back and re-suture the abdominal wall with tension suturing. So what is the summary? Here we have discussed that peritonitis is a surgical emergency and it is a common condition. It is by definition it is an inflammation of peritoneum, either generalized or localized. The greater omentum adhering to the inflamed structure often forms a barrier to the spread of infection, where in certain cases, for example in young children, the omentum is not developed fully. In these cases the infection is usually not adequately controlled and generalized peritonitis usually occurs. Operative treatment is often the treatment of choice, with few exceptions. The outcome depends upon the age, comorbids, and the severity of the disease. Thank you very much.